Today I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce Norbert Hödebeck-Stuntebeck. Introducing Norbert is literally like carrying owls to Athens or sand to the beach, I think. The question is rather, who doesn't know him in the PWS world? Since I know him, and that's been many years, we often talked and exchanged ideas about which diagnostic tools and methods are best suited to better understand the behavior of people with Prader-Willi syndrome and to be able to offer more targeted support. As written in the invitation to this ECHO meeting, diagnostic can lead to a higher quality of care for people with Prader-Willi syndrome and accordingly a higher quality of life for people with Prader-Willi syndrome. I totally agree with this. And now, Norbert, we are looking forward to hearing about your comments and conclusions.
Thank you, Hubert. So, yes, thank you to being here. Thank you that you take your time to sit together. Maybe this is in this moment the last Caregivers ECHO, I think. But before we start today, we talked about that we should thinking about in which way we go on with these ECHO, and I think it is a good method and a good structure to come in discussion, and therefore the idea about doing this presentation today is coming up over the last 20 years or longer, because I worked for a company which takes care of people with mental handicaps, and what we as psychologists should do in this company is we should do diagnostic, but the reality is that we do less of diagnostic in our work in the field of taking care of people with mental handicaps. And I'm not sure why it is. Maybe it could be that people think it is not helpful to use diagnostic, and I think this is not the right thing, and this is a little bit the reason why I proposed to make a presentation about diagnostic in Prader-Willi, because I think that we can have so many good information from diagnostic. The critique to diagnostic is often that it's too pauschal or too global or something like this. And what I will do in this presentation is I will give information about my idea for the next 3 years, but also some practical examples where diagnostic was very helpful in my last 10 years of working or 20 years of working, and see how we can use and how useful diagnostic could be in single cases. Yes, and I hope that we will have in 3 years a better overview, or maybe like a standard what we can use, which kind of diagnostic we can use or we should use in taking care of people with Prader-Willi. So therefore, I think diagnostic must be one of the standard components in taking care of people with Prader-Willi, because, and this is what Hubert said at the beginning, if we use the appropriate diagnostic, we can support and we can help people to get a more appropriate taking care of them, and at the end a higher quality of life. And the thing which is in the focus of taking care of people with Prader-Willi is often the things around challenging behavior. And when we go back 20 or 25 years, then I think we talked more about saving life, and overweight and all the other physical things were more in the center. But I think today in families or in group homes, these challenging behavior is often the focus and the challenging things for all of us. And I think that diagnostic could help to understand these things, these challenging behavior in a better way. And if we do a better understanding, we have a chance of a better taking care. And at first, I think when we talk about challenging behavior or crisis situation, I think this picture, I use it often in the last 10, 15 years. And Hubert, we work with these as a basic instrument. And these pictures shows the development or the course of a challenging behavior. So often we have these situations that people maybe come in a nervous situation, bring themselves down, and comes a little bit up, bring them down. But sometimes there are situations where the arousal is going up, and then we have a situation of a crisis, of a challenging behavior with all the things we know. And that's good that crisis situation or challenging behavior will not happen over years without a stopping. Often maybe it has 5 minutes or an hour or a day, but at the end it's going down, and there will be a situation where the arousal is relatively normal, and then we have the chance to reflect. And another line in this picture, I think it is important to know, it is the level of the cognitive competence. And what we see is that in the same level as the arousal is going up, the cognitive competence is going down. And to know about these, that in a situation of a very intensive crisis, people with Prader-Willi, but also we have very low competences. If we know this, then we know it better to handle this situation. And when the cognitive competence, the level of the cognitive competence is in a relative normal situation, then there is the part, or there is the situation, then there is a time to reflect the things which happens here in this situation, or maybe here when it's going up, to understand these, to reflect this together with the one with Prader-Willi, and to find out ways for the future in similar situations to prevent these crisis situations. Maybe at the beginning we have to support them to find out these strategies to bring them down. But over the years, I think more and more they are more and more able to perceive these coming up of the level of arousal and bring themselves down to a normal level. So the easiest strategy is, if I feel that I get nervous, I go in my own room and bring myself down. And this is, I'm sure all of you know this structure. It's a very easy thing. And at the beginning, we do this, we inform them, we gave them the information, but over the time they do it by themselves. And this is a good example for they are absolutely able to learn. And so therefore it is absolutely necessary to reflect with them. But to understand what happens here, this is the main thing, to understand what happens in this situation. This gives parents and caregivers a much better basic for handling these situations. And what I think is, for understanding these challenging behaviors, there are 3 things very important. The first is to know so much as possible about the symptoms of the syndrome. Not only the physical things, not only things about diabetes or about temperature or the other things, but it's also necessary to know about the cognitive, the social, and the emotional characteristics in PWS. As more we know about, as better our handling of situations is. The second thing, which is, I think, is very helpful, is an analysis on the basic of the psychosocial model. So to ask what happens in the one with Prader-Willi, the cognitive, social, emotional, physical things, but also the things around them, the environment, and all and all these things together, and all the information we can bring together by a systematic analysis is very helpful to understand. And the third thing is diagnostic, special diagnostic to special questions. And if we have the chance, or if we follow these ideas or these 3 things, then I think to understand is much more easier and much more precise than in a way we do it spontaneous or so. And my goal for Diagnostic in the next time is to have a paper of an international agreement where it's described which areas we should find out methods for physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and different things, and to describe which diagnostic method is accepted to use by us. And this is what a little bit the idea of this presentation today is, that we start this. Maybe there are some initiatives in different parts of the world, but maybe we can finish this process at the next IPWSO conference after Ireland in 3 years. And if we have a thing like a little bit like this paper here, it's really only a draft, but maybe we find out which developmental diagnostic, which competence diagnostic, or which physiological diagnostic we will have. And we describe these maybe by developmental diagnostic for motoric. Maybe we describe in 3 years, 3, 4, or 5 tests which are accepted and are helpful, or for cognition or for egocentrism. And also for the competence diagnostic, maybe for concentration, speech, or perceiving emotions by others, and so on and so on. So maybe the paper at the end in 3 years looks different, but it could be, I think it is for caregivers or for parents too. It could be helpful to have a paper like this, and to know which kind of diagnostic we can use. And this is a little bit the vision. And what I will do now is I will describe some examples of diagnostic which I use by myself and I see by others, which were very helpful to support people or to understand behavior, to understand the reasons, and also on the basis of the diagnostic to develop treatment. Or an appropriate care in critical situation, or change the environment. And the first example I will describe is using an IQ test. Many of us did this, many of us have information about it. And what I do not mean is the absolute number of the IQ. If someone have 56 or 33 or what else. Now, I think it is more important to use these IQ tests by the profile they bring out, and I will show you. So there was a situation that Bastian tried to manage conflict between other people with Prader-Willi in his group home. So there are 3 or 4 people in a conflict, and Bastian wants to go in and make clear the situation instead of the staff. And at the end, happens often the situation that he was the one who gets stressed with all the others. He have a good idea, but at the end it was very stressful for him. And so in these days when we see this, we make these intelligence scale, this Wechsler adult intelligence scale, and we see this profile by him. These IQ tests often have maybe 10 or 15, these tests have 15 subtests. And for each subtest, we get an information about the level he reached in these subtests. And what we see in this case is that subtest 6 and subtest 7 have a very, very, very low level. And each of these subtests represents a competence. And if you have a look at these subtests 6 and 7, both represents the perception and understanding of complex situations. So what happens was that Bastian thought he should make clear a critical situation, but he have no competence or very, very low competence to understand the situation. And then he is going in the situation and he makes so many mistakes. And at the end, he was the loser. So what we understand And what we do is we try to support him not to make clear the situation. Let the staff clear the situation. This is what we understand on the basic of the test. And so if we are able to support him not to go in this situation, he have less stress and the others too. So this is one example how we can use the results of these subtests of an IQ test. Another situation from this test I developed 10 years ago is, it was really a fun, not a funny, but it was an interesting situation. So there's maybe John saw someone falling down on the street, and he went to the person, take his arm and help him to stay up. And if we see the situation, it is a situation which is often there and it seems normal, but the person who he helps up is looking angry to him and said, "Do you think I'm a child and I'm not able to help myself?" And he pushed John away, and John was angry and showed a challenging behavior later in the group home about this. And he was very unhappy about this situation. He had a very big crisis in the group home. So in these days, we do these tests about checking how competent someone is in changing perspective by people with Prader-Willi. And with these tests, you can find out, and here you see the blue line is the average of people without handicaps. The red line is the test, the average of people with Prader-Willi. And the green line is the individual test of John. And you have very high competence, but only in one subtest, you have a very low competence. And these two things at the end represents the competence of changing the emotional perspective. And it is split in two things. It is split in, and maybe it is here, yeah. No, it's better to see here. The question is, do you have a competence of emotional change of perspective and speak about it or handle? So the thing is, if someone is laying on the ground, one competence is to help him up. The other competence is to ask him, do you want or do you need help? I see you fall down, maybe you are sad, something like this. And if I do not ask him and I only go and handle, then I have a conflict in the way we described, or I described it by John. So I hope you understand what I mean. And what we do on the basic of this information is we work with John that it is necessary if he see a feeling by someone else, or he think this feeling is by the other one, one competence is to ask the other one, is it correct that you are sad? Is it correct that you are angry or what else? And the second thing is it okay that I help you in this and this way? And since he learned to use these competence, since this time, he have never a situation like this I described before. Another situation, Maria, 21 years old, is new in the group since 5 days. And over these 5 days, she have 2, 3, or 4 times over the day, she taking things from others, play with these things in her room, and is very happy with this. But the others in the group home are very unhappy and sad about these things that they have not their favorite things. And in the team meeting, one of the staff said, maybe we take away things from her. Then she realized that it is not nice that you have not your own things. They did it. And what happens is that Maria gets big crisis and the stealing is going on. So it was not the best intervention, or it was not helpful. And what we do in these days is we make these, we use this instrument which make a diagnostic about the social emotional development. And these tests have 8 categories, maybe here using your own body and so on. And you see here, there's a very low competence in number 4. And number 4 means emotional differentiation. So what we find out is that, for example, the overcoming of the egocentrism, these looking in the world only from my view, is very, very low developed by these 21-year-old Maria. And so, so when the staff tries to get her a perception of a situation that she should feel like others feel, it is not possible for Maria because her developmental age of egocentrism is like 3 or 2 years old. And at this age, people are not able to have a look from other perspectives. So it helps the team very much not to do and not to stress her too much and to think that she can do this. We know that she was not able, and the treatment was to work with her over the next years to overcome more and more the egocentrism so that she's more and more looking from perspectives of others. An example for a concentration and attention test. There is someone who is in the sheltered workshop, and he's going there. He liked to do this. He liked the money he got there, but in the afternoon, often he showed many challenging challenging behavior in the sheltered workshop, but only in the afternoon. And now they discuss should they bring him out of the sheltered workshop? Could he work there or not? And what we used is a D2 test. It's a very interesting thing. Maybe many of you know these. And the job is you have to, in 15 seconds, you have to find out how many Ds you find in this line. And after 15 seconds, the next line, and overall there are 14 rows. And the result of this is you check how many items the one used overall, how many Ds he finds. So the question is number of correct findings, and how many mistakes he makes. He said, oh, this is a D, but it wasn't a D. So, and the things, what you can see here is in the first 4 rows, he have good results, maybe similar results, like the number he used, the correct findings, and the mistakes. And also in the row 5 to 10, it's the same picture, but there's a big difference in the last 4 rows. And in the next picture, I think it is easier to see. So these are the first 4, and no different. But you see in the middle. No, I make a mistake. The number of used items overall is similar in the first, in the second, or in the third part. The number of correct findings in the first, the 1 and 4, and the 5th and 10 rows are also similar, but in the last, the number of correct findings are very low. And if you go to the last 4 rows, you see in the last 4, he makes many mistakes. So the consequence of the test for the staff in the sheltered workshop was, now we understand that at the beginning and in the middle of his work, he makes no mistakes. He is a good worker, but in the last part. So, and when they think in the afternoon, he have often many conflicts or showed challenging behavior. So, and so we think that he makes mistakes, he sees his mistakes, and he's not happy with his mistakes. So, and what the consequence was in the sheltered workshop is that we changed the work in the afternoon. So in the morning, he get complex work, he make no mistakes. In the afternoon, now he gets very less complicated work, and he makes less stress, and he has less stress, and therefore less challenging behavior. And it was an interesting situation for the staff in the shelter workshop. The last example I will give is in a group home, there is a team of 8 staff. One is very new, 3 weeks in the group, and 6 people with PWS. And since some weeks, the team is thinking that the number of challenging behavior is going up. And so the idea is, it depends on the new one. So the new one in the staff is not, maybe it's not good, and maybe we should fire him and so on. But they are not sure, and they say, how can we find it out what happens? And what we use is these behavior observation instrument. I'm not sure if it is an English word, but maybe, as Shelley said before, we develop new words in English, but you will see what I mean. So the task for the group was every challenging behavior in the group home has to be documented. And the question is, when does the challenging behavior occurs and who is present? And we do it over a period of 4 weeks. And the instrument is looking like this. We have the date, the time, number or name of present staff, maybe staff 1, staff 2, staff 8, and the total number of staff who are present now, if there are 2 or 5 or 3 people there, and the number of clients which are there in the situation when the challenging behavior occurs, and the number of challenging behavior. Maybe at one day there are 3 or 4, and the next day is number 5, 6, 7, and so on. So the beginning question was, is the new member of the staff the problem? And the result was, overall there are, I think, 52 challenging behaviors in these 4 weeks. And the critical number is staff number 6, and he was involved in 28 of these. But you see, others are in 20 or 25, or some are more than he. So the first answer is, we think that it is not the problem of this individual. But the most important information comes from other things. So what we find out is that the absolute number of challenging behavior is 52. And what we saw is 45 of them happens when there are less than or 2 or less staff in the situation. And only 7 when there are more than or 3 or more of the staff in the situation. And the second thing, which was very interesting, is 52 challenging behavior in total, and only 13 if there are 4 or less number of clients or people with Prader-Willi are in the situation there, and 39 of the challenging behavior happens when the number of clients is 5 or more. So at the end of this diagnostic phase, the team is thinking about how can we change the staff situation so that there are more than 2 in situation which are critical, if we can and to prevent. And the other is having the number of clients in mind. So if there are 6, 7, no, there are only 6. If there are 4, 5, or 6 people in the situation, we know it is a more critical than there are less than 3. So these are the idea, and it is not systematic, I know, but these should be examples for how can diagnostic be helpful to understand the upgoing level of arousal or the crisis situation, and how can we use this to prepare ourselves better to handle or to prevent challenging behavior by using diagnostic. And maybe this could be a draft, or this could be the draft where we start with, or it could be a different way, but I think what we should try to find and start today and with this discussion that now the idea of having an overview, having a paper of accepted diagnostic instruments, maybe in the next caregivers conference. I do not know where it is, but when we have this in 2025, I am very happy to start this discussion. Thank you so much.